Hello, everyone, and welcome to a 10-part series on how to be a great leader in this new and often challenging world of work that we operate in.
Workforce Excellence, involvedgroup.com.
In this session, I'll be focusing on the 8th of the 10 traits that employees highlighted for being a great leader, which is about how leaders can help their employees succeed. Now, there's many ways that you can do this. And in fact, I've already spoken about some of them in previous sessions. But for this session, I'm going to focus on doing this through performance management, which involves helping your employees succeed in their current job and helping them develop into future jobs and future success. And I'll be answering two questions. First, why is it important for leaders to help their employees succeed? And then second, how can you help your employees succeed through performance management? So let's start with the why. So why is it important for leaders to help their employees succeed through performance management? So let me share with you 5 reasons which are important from both the employee and also from the company perspective. The first is that by giving your time and your attention to your employees' performance and their development, it shows them that you care about them. You care about helping them to set them up for success, and you care about helping them develop to be the best they can in their current and future jobs. And by showing your employees that you care, which is something that I'll be focusing more on the last of the 10-part series, you'll benefit from their commitment and also from their engagement. Next, performance management helps employees know how they're doing against their goals. So if they're on track or if they're going in the wrong direction. Too often, I've heard employees come to me in my HR role to say that they have no clue as to how they're doing and what their manager thinks of their performance. This should never happen. Employees should always be clear as to how they're performing against their expectations. Which leads me to the third reason, which is that when employees are clear on their performance, they can perform at their best, being as productive as possible. If they don't know how they're doing, they could be less productive, they could waste time wondering what to do or making costly mistakes. And this is important to them so that they have a sense of accomplishment, but it's also important to you as their leader and to the company. The next reason that performance management is so important is that it helps employees improve and develop. They improve through having ongoing conversations with you on learnings and lessons related to their work and their performance, and they develop through ongoing discussions and action plans on training and development required to help them both improve and again develop. This is important to help employees perform at their best again, but also as a way to retain them at your company. Training and development is so important that one study found that 40% of employees leave their company within the first year due to poor training. And speaking of 40%, another survey found that 40% of employees who receive poor training and limited opportunities for development will actually leave their company within 5 years. So either way, either study, they both show that this is a really important retention tool. The final reason is that effective performance management helps drive employee engagement. And as I mentioned in previous sessions, employee engagement is that connection. It's that connection between you as the leader and also to the business. And it's also something that can help the employee feel more valued, have them be more successful, and help your business to succeed. So now let's move on to the how. So how do you unlock the potential of your employees through effective performance management? And I'll be sharing with you 5 tips that you can take away and you can action. But before I do this, what I wanted to do is I just wanted to spend a minute talking about how performance management has and needs to continue to change. When I started out as a leader, we managed performance, but I have to admit it wasn't done very well. We'd have annual, or at most, we'd have quarterly performance conversations. And they were very formal, very one-sided, and they didn't really look at performance in a holistic manner. More companies are getting performance management right, and they're doing it by doing two things. The first is by doing it in a more human way. One of the major criticisms of performance management is that they are too contrived and not authentic. And they're too focused on the process or ticking the box and going through the motions. And this really, really needs to change if we want to achieve the impact and the results that I shared earlier. Adding the human back into how it's done, doing it in a more caring and a more meaningful way. And then the other important change is making it more continuous. In my book, Build It, I interviewed Gap Inc., who I used to work for, who have done this with their GPS management process, which stands for Grow, Perform, Succeed. And it signals to the managers what they want the process to do. Think of it this way, a GPS, or sat nav as we call it in the UK, it lets you set your direction, but then it recalculates it in real time if you get lost, to help you get back on track, which I get lost all the time, so it helps me. And that's exactly what Gap wanted their managers to do through this process. Course correcting employee performance throughout the year. And it should be something that you as a leader want to do with your employees, making it this continuous process. So let's see how you can do this. Well, the first tip is to make a commitment to take the time for performance management. Now, I know how busy you are as a leader, but if you don't make it a priority, you'll never do it. And you and your employee will never benefit from it. So by making the time and holding yourself accountable for regular and meaningful conversations with your employees, they'll feel valued, they'll feel appreciated, engaged, and they'll perform at their best and develop additional skills. The next tip stems from the simple fact that I'm sure we all know, which is that no two employees are the same. It would certainly be easier if they were, but unfortunately, each employee performs and is motivated differently, which means that when it comes to performance management, we need to start by understanding what makes each employee tick. So how do they like to receive feedback? How do they like to learn? How do they like to develop? What's their own unique set of career expectations and goals? Start by understanding this and go back to it frequently to understand if or how it's changed, and you'll have a much better chance of having effective performance management conversations and better overall results. The next tip is to actively involve your employees in the performance management process, opening the door to let them be a part of this process. Gone are the days of managers sitting across from their employees and telling them exactly how to do things or how to have it done and getting no input whatsoever from their employees. Luckily, businesses are realizing that performance management is very much a shared responsibility between the employee and between their manager. And research shows that when it's done this way, it will lead to much higher employee satisfaction, commitment, and motivation to improve performance. The next tip is to provide timely and meaningful feedback throughout the performance management process. Now, I've mentioned feedback a few times already throughout this leadership series, and I'll mention it a few more times. And that's because it's important in so many different situations and so many different processes. And when it comes to performance management, feedback is absolutely critical. Or going back to something that I said earlier, your employee will have no clue whatsoever as to how they're doing and what they can do to improve. But also, as I've said a few times already in this series, feedback needs to be effective to be done and to achieve the goals that it needs. So it has to be done in the right way, in the right place, and just get it done effectively. So one of my favorite books that talks about this is Brene Brown's book, which is called Daring Greatly. And she shares something which is called the Engaged Feedback Checklist, which includes 10 things that you must be ready to do before you sit down and give feedback, such as being ready to sit down next to the person and not across from them, and being ready to put the problem in front of you and not between you. I really recommend reading this either in her book or looking for it online. The final tip is to create a culture of continuous learning, which talks about the importance of learning and development in the performance and management process. Make sure that you focus as much of your time and your effort on the development as on the day-to-day performance, helping your employees understand what's available to them, coaching them through new development, because it'll help them really improve and progress. And as I mentioned a few other times, it'll help retain them because it's so important to them to get this development. So those are my 5 tips to help you manage the performance management process and to manage the performance of your employees. And remember, it'll help them succeed and it'll help your business succeed. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope you join the other sessions on how to be a great leader.